You're listening to the See the Unseen podcast, where our number one focus is creating a little visibility for people who deserve a whole lot of spotlight. I'm your host, Melissa Georgeoff, and I'm here to share some amazing stories that can transform and inspire lives. So get ready to take those blinders off and see the unseen.
Welcome to the podcast. So this is so ironic that this happened. So I literally just did a podcast for 18 minutes. I thought I had tested my microphones and everything else. And no, I did the entire podcast, which I thought went okay. And it was all without sound. So this, the whole reason I started to do this podcast was because I wanted to talk about this year how, I started with the best intentions of really being thoughtful about setting goals this year, because I get real excited about doing that. And moving forward. Well, my New Year's didn't really start that way. In fact, New Year's Eve ended on kind of a negative note. And it was just something personal that happened, and everything's fine now, I think. But sometimes life doesn't always work out the way you want it. Things happen. And so, something happened, and, it got resolved for the most part. And I was in a really funk on New Year's Day. And so I had bought this book when Andy and I were in Maine last week, and was like, setting goals for next year, for the next 5 years. And I was super excited about, what was I going to do moving forward? And I didn't get to it. I didn't feel like it. I didn't want to do it. And so, that kind of got me in a funk. And I was thinking about, how do I continue to move forward? I wanted to, the whole reason I started the podcast was because I wanted to continue to be, bring visibility to people with disabilities. I wanted to help people grow in their career, tell the stories behind singer-songwriters, and talk about my faith. But so let me tell you a little bit about about a year and a half ago when my job was eliminated. I lost my job. In the middle of that, I was developing a keynote. And the irony of that was that my keynote was really because I wanted to help others. And so my keynote was always, or the tagline was, helping people remove barriers in order to live a life of purpose and passion. And during all of this, I lose my job. And so then I find myself in, how do I find my purpose and passion? And so it had always been in the wheelchair industry, and it still is. But how do I take, that and continue to, find something that I enjoy doing? Because work has always been my whole life, is just I put every effort into work, and I didn't have a lot of balance in life. So I wanted to be very thoughtful about, not going crazy on the work side, but also finding things that I enjoy doing. But part of what I enjoy doing is growing and in a different way, and learning. So anyway, this is a long story to get to the point. So the reason I want to just say, not only did my podcast all mess up this morning, and I'm still going to try it again, but the dog started barking. Braden came in talking about his contacts. Kaylee on the phone this morning had told me, Mom, just do it. This is like a 20, 30-minute podcast. You've got time. I said, well, Andy's parents are coming over here. I don't know if I have time doing this. She's like, oh, it's easy. Just go do it. Well, it wasn't easy because I went in here to use the camera. The battery's dead. I have to pull the other camera. It's just it was such a mess. And this is, again, the fact that I recorded this whole thing and now it didn't even record, but I'm doing it again. Okay. And so sometimes life just doesn't work out the way you want it, and you just got to keep after it. You got to keep doing it. And when I think about, putting goals together, the reason, I am very much, if you say you're going to do something, do it. And I don't like to ever commit to anything unless I'm actually going to do it. That's just a pet peeve of mine, is like, if you say you're going to do it, then do it, follow up with it. But I found myself, this year is like, I needed some encouragement. I'm like, I'm struggling here. Like, what is it that's I work remotely. I don't see people each day. I was talking to my sister and a couple friends were over last night to watch the Golden Bachelor wedding. And when they left, my sister said, I like to drive into work because I listen to the radio, I listen to, podcast. And then I get to work and all my colleagues, we have so much fun. We joke, we have fun together. Well, I don't have that because I now work from home a lot. And I thought about that. And then, another friend of mine had said that she kind of felt the same way. She works from home. She's like, I feel like I'm in a prison. I don't see people. I went to my daughter took my grandbaby to PT and Chick-fil-A yesterday. I went with her and I'm like, there are people in this world. Like, oh my gosh, look at all the people. And I'm like excited about it. It's crazy that, when you do work remotely, I mean, some people think that that's all great and glamorous, but if you're a people person, it's really hard because you're not feeling that connection. So anyway, I know I'm kind of rambling on, so stick with me here. I bought this book and it was called The High Five Habit by Mel Robbins. I love Mel Robbins. I watch her podcast like every single day. And I've been thinking about putting this podcast together about this particular topic. And, but you know what? I kept procrastinating each day. I would be like, oh, I need to do that. I need to do that. But in the afternoon, I like get busy doing something else. So this is me forcing myself to do this podcast today. Anyway, so she talks about the high five habit and how important it is to high five yourself. She started doing this one day and she said, stay with me because I know this sounds a little cheesy, but she was talking about what are the negative things that we say to ourselves every single day in the mirror. And we wouldn't allow a friend to talk about themselves like that. So, if a friend says, oh, I feel fat or I feel ugly or I don't feel like I'm smart or whatever, you would tell your friend, like, that's not true. You're smart. You're beautiful. You're funny. You're giving, you would say kind things, but sometimes we don't say kind things about ourselves. And so she had been thinking about this. And, I think about that sometimes, when I'm looking in the mirror, I'll be like, I don't like my hair today, or, wow, I'm starting to get wrinkles, or, I need to get to the gym. Like, oh my gosh, you've lost all your muscle, and you're just, or, you might tell yourself, I've reached my limit on my career. Like there's nothing else that I can do. And so it's all these like limited beliefs and this doubt and this self-talk that's negative. And so what she wanted to do is like encourage people to high five themselves in the mirror. And she talked about, and I have not read the whole book yet, but she talks about how people, even with cancer, have to encourage themselves. And so, saying the positive things about yourself, there's a lot of psychology behind the fact that when you do speak good of yourself and speak highly of yourself, that, you will continue to encourage yourself. And so I think about even like, what does God say about ourselves? Like, maybe we should think more about like, what does God say about me? Or, or look in the mirror and, say the positive things, you are a giving person, or you are fun, you are smart, and, it might sound silly, but I think that these things matter. It matters how we talk to people. It matters what we say to ourselves. And so this really resonated with me. But here's the story that I really want to tell you. So many of you might know, if you're my friend, okay, so let me back up here. Andy wanted me to watch this podcast on New Year's Day. So I'm in a funk. I really don't want to do anything. And it's like Chase Rice and Cameron Haynes. It's Cameron Haynes' podcast. They're going to talk about hunting. They go hunting and then they come back and do a podcast. Well, I didn't really want to watch it, but I was like, sure, turn it on. Well, first of all, let me back up and tell you how I met Chase Rice. So I know Chase Rice. Here's a picture of Chase Rice. If you don't know him, he's a country music singer. He has had 2 number 1 hits. And then here I actually got to meet him at a friend of mine, Joel Clayfish. He's a lobbyist, and he's got his own podcast. He's got his own radio show in Wisconsin. He's a really cool guy. And I worked with him during when I was working in the wheelchair industry, and his wife ran for governor. And he had Chase Rice at his house. Here we are. We all went to a Chase Rice concert. And that's Joel on the right, and Dr. Tara Kirsten. She's a friend of mine who's a doctor. And, me and Andy, and that's her ex-boyfriend. So anyway, so there's a picture of all of us. I got to meet Chase Rice. So here's a picture of me and Chase. I thought he was a really cool guy, very humble. And, he talked about, the songs that he was writing, Ready, Set, Let's Roll. He said that, the music industry wanted him to be someone that really was not. And he was singing a bunch of songs that didn't really feel like him. And he really wanted to work the next year on being more of his authentic self. And he was going to start writing songs that whether, people didn't like him, he didn't really care. He was going to do what he wanted to do, which I thought was really cool because I really do try and live my life in an authentic way. And I try and be honest. And that's why I love the podcast, because in my corporate world, there sometimes are politics, and you can say this, can't say that, but in my podcast, I feel like I can be my authentic self, and it shows a different personal side of me. And so that's why I enjoy doing it. So I really loved that Chase was saying kind of the same thing. Here's a picture of me and Chase. And this is the Bueller guy, and he's a famous baseball player. And then Chad, he has a book called The Provider. He has a podcast. And then here we are, the whole group of us. This is a friend of mine, Ted, who used to work for me too. And me, Andy, we're all there at Joel's house. And Chase Rice actually sang happy birthday to me, which was also really cool. I just remember it being a really cool birthday. Like, how many times can you sit in somebody's house, listen to Chase, watch him have a few beers, be real relaxed, sing with his guitar, a couple songs, everybody's kind of singing together. And then it's my birthday, and Chase Rice, when everybody else sings happy birthday to me, which was really kind of cool and fun. So I've always, I'm a Chase Rice fan. So Andy tells me that he wants me to watch this podcast. Okay. And before I tell you a story, sometimes when I don't like something, or I don't like something Andy says, or if I don't like something that he's telling me about or whatever, I do this. I just go. And he thinks it's cute and funny. I don't know why, but that's what I do. And so he's like, you've got to watch this podcast with Cameron Haynes and Chase Rice. You'll really like it. And I'm in a funk, but I watch it anyway. And so, they go out hunting, they do their podcast, and they're, Cameron's talking to Chase about the music industry. And, Chase really talks about how he really, kind of humbled himself, and he wants to be authentic. And now he doesn't really care what people think, and he's just going to write from his heart and write what, he's not just going to write about a pickup truck and losing somebody you love or whatever. He wants to write about things that are meaningful in his life. And so anyway, I'm really enjoying the podcast. I'm listening to it. But then he tells this story, and it's about how sometimes, like, when he is opening up for someone, and like, let's say they're a bigger country star than maybe Chase is. So for instance, that first picture I showed you, he was opening up for Kane Brown. He talked about opening up, I guess, for Morgan Wallen, and he spoke very highly of Morgan Wallen. And so, he says, like, Eric Church, he puts the glasses on so that when he's looking in the crowd, sometimes he likes making eye contact and sometimes he doesn't. Like, it almost, it affects him, because he's like, sometimes you'll look at people and they're all having like a blast and they're all dancing and, and just having a great time, and it energizes him. But other times he'll look in the crowd, and if somebody's just kind of sitting there, looking bored, he's like, it kind of gets to him. He's kind of like, well, why aren't they happy? Why aren't they excited about my music? Do they not like my song? So I thought it was really interesting that he, even Chase has self-doubt at times. And so as cool as, he is on stage, he's opening up with hundreds of thousands of people listening to him. He tells this story. And this is why it cracked me up on the podcast. And I wanted to do this podcast because he tells this story about this really big, burly dude. Okay. And he's in the front row and he's just like this with Chase. He's just like, and Chase is looking at him. He's like trying to, sing a song and everything. He looks down, he keeps looking at this guy and he's like, what the heck is this guy's problem? And then it's getting him. It's like getting in his head and everything. And then all of a sudden he looks at this guy and he's standing there like this. And he goes, and Chase is like, what the F, dude? Like, what is your problem? And I just cracked up laughing hearing the story. Like, I had tears rolling down my face, and not because I was laughing at Chase, but just that, well, it just made me laugh because it's like, if it can happen to Chase Rice, if Chase can, like, as cool as he is on stage and he's singing in front of hundreds of thousands of people, and one person's actions, like one dude giving him the thumbs down, can like get in his head and make him like doubt himself. And I'm thinking it could happen to any of us. And so it really made me think about how important it is to say kind things to people, to encourage people, to lift each other up. And I started thinking, what if we all just, instead of, I started thinking about the thumbs down, and I was like, what if we just gave each other a thumbs up? So what I want to ask each of you guys on this podcast is if you would, number one, subscribe to my YouTube channel, See the Unseen, and give me a thumbs up. And I felt like that's super ironic because it is a thumbs up on YouTube. And also, if maybe, give Chase Rice a thumbs up, number one. Number two, maybe you need a thumbs up yourself, and like take a picture of yourself, give yourself a thumbs up and post it on this page, and tag yourself or tag a friend that you want to give a thumbs up to, that you want to encourage and say, keep going, I'm proud of you, or just encourage, just some words of encouragement that you would write on there. And, maybe I need a thumbs up. Like, give me I would appreciate if you feel like you want to, post a picture of yourself and give me a thumbs up, because I need to continue to be encouraged to do what I'm passionate about. And so, whatever it is out there, I just think it really, what we do, I don't have it all together, and I could have literally stopped this podcast, never even have done this. And quite honestly, like right now I'm thinking this microphone's echoing. I'm such a perfectionist. It irritates me that it is. The dogs have been in and out of this room, but I think it's important that we need to keep encouraging ourselves, others, that you don't have to have it all figured out. Take the baby steps, do the little things, keep encouraging others, give each other the thumbs up. And, I just think that we need it. We need to know, we need to, pray about it. We need to remember what God says about us. And we also need to encourage others and have connection with others. So anyway, I'm rambling now, and I'm going to keep this podcast to less than 20 minutes. But if you really, if you liked this podcast, again, give me a thumbs up, give a friend a thumbs up, give Chase Rice a thumbs up. But, I just really appreciate all of you last year for even watching my podcast, and appreciate all of the support. So thank you.